The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Mike. I'm feeling very relieved today. And also, just the fact that there's big stuff going on in the NBA. Obviously, we knew it was going to happen generally around this time of the year. But the deadline is Thursday. I was thinking it would come up closer on the deadline there. And then, lo and behold, today was fucking madness. It was really fun.
We always had planned to record today, but I'm super grateful we did because otherwise we would just be continually trying to figure out what to talk about because, I mean, from a day-to-day perspective, it's changed. It's like the NBA in some respects ages you in dog years if you're trying to figure out how to cover the trade deadline because everything happens so fast, and we're going to cover what we can and actually where the Suns stand. But I did want to just quickly talk about how they've been playing lately because they continue to play well, and I think it's worth mentioning two guys in particular, Mikal Bridges and DeAndre. And who do you want to talk about first before we get to trade deadline stuff?
Oh, man, good question. If we're just talking about the last two games, so they had a really good weekend for anyone who missed it. Beat the Celtics, beat the Pistons. I'd say DeAndre Ayton first. I mean, I think DeAndre Ayton kicked ass this weekend. Both of them did, but him especially. Yeah, I think it's a good place to start. I think it's a good place to start because we kind of killed his defense on the last podcast, and rightfully so. I think he earned that. But on the other side of that, 2 games in a row is 2 games in a row, but it's still a good sign to see him playing well defensively. I thought in particular the Boston Celtics game was a really impressive showing by DeAndre and defensively. You know, offense is offense. I think he continued to play well offensively. It just depends on how teams defend the Suns. He can find buckets against certain kinds of defense pretty consistently. But defensively, that's where we needed him to show something, and he really did. And in that Boston game, they would have absolutely lost if he did not play as well as he played in that game. And it's great. It's great to see him stepping up. You know, the Detroit game, I thought he played really well too, but it's just a lot easier to defend them than it is to defend the Boston Celtics. It's fair.
So to see him switch out to the perimeter, chase guys around, be a little higher in the pick and roll, which I talked about, he was a little too deep, which didn't let him contest any sort of short jumpers or floaters. All of that combined, along with just moving his feet and fighting for rebounds, I think is really what they need from him. And if he continues to do that, I think the whole Suns team will benefit from it because the entire defensive scheme ultimately is funneling guys into him. And if he's not there as that back line, it makes everyone look worse.
He needs to be the anchor of the defense, really, for the team to be clicking at 100%. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because in that Boston game, he did only have 14 points, right? But again, it's just that doesn't matter as much when we're talking about him day in and day out, putting in the concentration that's necessary on defense. And the concentration was absolutely there versus Boston. Not just for him either, by the way, and not just for Mikal either, who we're going to talk about in a minute, but that Boston game, from a team defense standpoint, I thought was like just maybe the most impressive win the Suns have had. Maybe in the past couple months at least, maybe all season. Like their rotations were flawless. Everyone, player 1 through 10 or 12 in the rotation or whatever, was scrambling really, really well, making second efforts when they got beat. And I mean, DA really held it down, but everyone was awesome in that one. It was nice to see.
You just don't beat teams like that unless you play that well. I think the last game where they looked that connected defensively was when they beat the Warriors, which was not, it's not really the same because it was Mikal. I don't know if you remember that game, but that's like the game that we look at as the demarcation for when Mikal Bridges started this run that he's on. Mm-hmm. It was a nationally televised game, but the starters in that game were Dwayne Washington Jr., Mikal Bridges, Torrey Craig, Dario Saric, and Bismack Biyombo. So it's cool to see them play well defensively, and it was impressive. I think the only real player that struggled in that group was Dwayne Washington Jr., but now to see them play well defensively with Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cameron Johnson in particular on the floor, obviously it gets you more excited about the future. It's not quite the same. I mean, one of those players isn't even on the Suns anymore as far as that Warriors game, but that was the last time I think they looked this connected defensively. And what I mean by that is they all kind of move in unison. They know where the rotations are going to be, right? When one guy rotates out to the shooter, another guy's covering the low end of the court and vice versa. There's guys blocking out. There's guys chasing. There's switches. There's scram switches. There's just all kinds of things that they need to do. And the Suns when they play that well, that's what they did last season. Like, that's just how they played basically the entirety of the season. But we had yet to see that so far this season. And I know this is something that you say often with DeAndre Ayton, but I hope this is something that they're able to build off of, because I think it would be really important for the team to continue to build off of specifically how he played defensively. I do think there will be games where he continues to get easy buckets like he did in the Detroit game, and credit to him for that insanely efficient performance by him in that Detroit game. But I do think that'll just continue to happen regardless of the effort defensively. But on the other end of that, if the Suns are expected to beat great teams, he kind of needs to play as well as he did in that game. So fingers crossed once again for DeAndre Ayton to do this more consistently. Yeah.
We'll see if it clicks.
The good news is he has been more consistent than this in the past. It's not like we're asking for something we've never seen before.
Yep, that's true.
The other guy is Mikal Bridges, and, look, in some ways we're just going to run out of things to say. This is just what he's doing lately.
We've talked about him how many weeks in a row? Probably like 3 or 4. I guess with a whole segment dedicated to him, basically.
Since the Warriors game, which I guess was 14 games ago. And since then, 22 points, 5 assists, 3.7 rebounds, 1.3 steals in that time, shooting 48, 37, which is low, particularly because of that Denver game, which I'll keep mentioning, and 89 from the free throw line, including 4.6 free throw attempts per game, which on the Suns is basically the best of any player during that stretch. But I have one stat that I want to throw at you and get your reaction before we move on to trade deadline stuff. But in the last 10 games, Mikal Bridges is shooting 8.2 pull-up shots per game. 8.2 pull-up shots per game. And he's shooting in those shots 47.6%. And for those who don't know much about that stat, that's very good. Very good. But
I'm assuming from eye test, the vast majority of those are pull-up twos.
Correct. I think it's like 1.5 pull-up threes per game, and you know what they are.
Although he has done transition. Yeah, he has taken a few of those in transition, and it does.
I mean, like 1.5 a game, basically. Yeah.
It surprises me every time he does it. I like it. I want him to keep doing it. I like
when they shoot threes in transition more often when the defense is backpedaling. I kind of wish they would do it a little bit more. I looked at the stats.
Should have re-signed Dwayne Washington Jr. I don't really care.
Besides Chris Paul, who do you think, I'm going to give you, it's going to be very hard to guess, but I'm going to give you a guess. Who do you think was the last teammate Devin Booker had who shot 8 or more pull-up shots per game? Besides Chris Paul.
Who was the last teammate Devin Booker had who shot more than 8 for an entire season?
For an entire season, average more than 8 pull-up attempts per game.
You're not going to give me any hints. Other than Chris Paul.
It wasn't Chris Paul. Let me work
through. I like it when you quiz me like this. Okay. So, not Kelly Oubre, because we have to kind of go through the cycle of who were all the other big-time scorers. Scores, like, in quotes, because, as we know, Book's never played, at least for the past several years, next to another 20-point-per-game guy. So, not Kelly, because that wasn't his game. Not Ricky, that wasn't his game. So, let's go further back than that. Was it TJ?
It was not. No.
It was not TJ, and it wasn't Bledsoe.
It was not Bledsoe. I thought it was going to be Bledsoe.
So it's not Bledsoe. It's not
Bledsoe.
TJ.
He topped out at like 6.8 or something, and the stats were not good for his percentages.
Not Bledsoe, not TJ, not Kelly. Fuck.
You ready?
No, wait. How insane is this? Like, if I say Mike James... Is it going to be?
I think there's a chance you didn't remember that this guy was teammates with Devin Booker, but it will seem obvious once it comes out of my mouth.
Is it Brandon Knight?
It's Brandon Knight. You nailed it.
All right. Nice.
Brandon Knight, he shot like 8.6 pull-ups per game.
And shot like 12% on them.
Last season with the Suns.
Memory serves.
36%, which is
Jesus,
bad.
That's bad.
It's very bad. So the last team, Mikal Bridges, to be fair, is not doing that with Devin Booker on the team and is not doing that on average over the course of a season. But we have a significant stretch here where he's creating a lot of his offense on his own and scoring efficiently within that offense. And Devin Booker, outside of Chris Paul, essentially has never had a teammate who does this. So if Mikal Bridges can continue to build on what he's doing so far, he could essentially be the first non-Chris Paul teammate capable of efficiently creating his own offense with Devin Booker.
It would be really nice if it can happen. We've been talking about it for years. It shouldn't stop the Suns, however, and I'm going to use this as our opportunity to start to segue because I think people who press play on this episode immediately as it came out are wondering why the hell we haven't talked about it yet. So I'm going to use this as a segue. It would be nice if it happens with Mikal.
Yeah.
It shouldn't stop the Suns in their pursuit of other guys who are known, who have more of a known ability when it comes to self-creation, let's just say. Is that fair to say, Mike?
I think it's completely fair to say, and I think the Suns... the Suns appear to know that, as we've seen with rumors around, whether it be Domantas Sabonis in the past to Kevin Durant to then Kyrie Irving as recently as the beginning of this week. But like I said, we planned on recording today regardless, and an entire news cycle, an entire trade request asked and then answered has happened since the last time we recorded even a Patreon podcast, not even just our regular weekly podcast. And that was Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie Irving, I mean, I could say quote unquote out of the blue requested a trade from the Nets, but nothing is overly surprising when it comes to Kyrie Irving. And
it was still out
Nets
of the blue.
Team.
It was still out of the blue.
Out of the blue, yes. Surprising.
Now, I guess you could say nothing for that guy is surprising, sure. But people were still freaking out.
Yeah.
It's still an unprecedented situation for a guy to do that, giving his team 1 week notice when they are literally in championship contention right now.
Right.
So
they were, at least, yeah.
Yeah, so out of the, I mean, they think they still are. Maybe. We got to talk about that too. But
well, yeah, I mean, my first initial reaction was entirely Kevin Durant related, which we will get to next.
Where do we start with this? Should we start with maybe?
Well, we have to quickly say that the Suns were immediately linked to him.
You're right. We're right.
And that, I think, was the surprising part for me and a lot of people who we know or talk to who are pretty well connected with the Suns. I think they all felt like that was a surprise to hear the idea of Kyrie Irving as a potential trade candidate for the Phoenix Suns.
So expand on that. I know what you're going to say, but why was that a surprise to you?
Well,
why was it so surprising to see the Suns be linked to Kyrie?
There's multiple reasons. I mean, the first one I think is the most obvious and basketball-related one, and that is that they have a starting point guard right now, who is Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is, as most put it, the leader of this team and somebody who's very, very close with Monty Williams and Devin Booker. And you start there. I mean, as a trade partner for the Nets, I could see the Nets looking at Chris Paul and saying, can we get Chris Paul for Kyrie Irving? We can at least try to contend with a combination of Chris Paul and Kevin Durant this year. And I think that makes sense from their perspective. It makes a lot of sense. From the Suns' perspective, I think from a basketball fit, it does kind of make sense too. I think there is a little bit about Kyrie Irving not quite as good as he used to be, and maybe you could question his value on the Suns. But I think Chris Paul getting older, replacing him with a young all-star, of course, the basketball sense just absolutely makes sense from that perspective. But I do think there is this belief that the Suns appreciate having a superstar in Devin Booker that doesn't really bring a lot of off-the-court stuff to the team. And with Kyrie Irving in the fold, there would at least be some worry of that happening, which is founded because it's happened with just about every team he's been on. And that's, I think, why a lot of people were surprised, including us.
That last part is the biggest part for me. Yeah. That, not that it was completely inconceivable that the Suns would have interest in Kyrie, because, look, I don't personally like Kyrie Irving. He's not my cup of tea, but he's like such a phenomenally talented basketball player that you understand why a team might be intrigued still, even at this stage. But the way that the Suns conduct business, for them to have targeted Kyrie, if that report ever was true, which I don't really believe it was true, but if it was true, would have changed everything we know about this front office.
Yeah.
They don't go after players like this. They're actively trying to get rid of one of these players right now, and Jay Crowder. They wouldn't even let him suit up for the team this year. They just said, stay home.
They didn't bring
stay
Rashawn
home.
Holmes back after like a marijuana thing, like something tiny from, a general perspective. Rashawn Holmes was basically banished from the team for something small. And, perspective-wise, it wouldn't have brought a lot on the Suns. People have forgot that even happened. But that's kind of why he's gone from the Suns.
They told Jay Crowder, we don't even want to run the risk of you fucking with our locker room. We don't want to run the risk of you being a locker room cancer. Just stay home, sit in the corner, go in timeout. That's their approach with Jay Crowder, and they haven't traded him yet. They will soon, within a few days. But, between that, Devin Booker being a completely drama-free superstar who doesn't have a political stance on anything, at least publicly. I'm sure he believes, in politics, but never talks about anything publicly that could be controversial. That's just the way he operates. He's entirely hoops. He's all basketball.
Right.
And him, Mikhail's like that. Cam Johnson's like that. Ayton's like that even. Kevin Durant is like that too. But so it's not that Kyrie isn't talented. It's just to go after this particular brand of basketball player with everything we know about how James Jones has operated for the past 3 seasons, wouldn't have made any sense. It would have meant you could go so far as saying that maybe it wasn't James Jones calling the shots anymore.
Yeah.
If the Suns were gonna make a Godfather offer, because they could have easily beaten this offer, Mike.
Or maybe he wouldn't be calling the shots much longer if this went down. I mean, that could have been a question as well, because I just don't feel like it's in his wheelhouse to make that kind of move. And even just from a contract perspective, there's a massive risk in doing this for Kyrie Irving. And obviously, those who follow the NBA know already, Dallas already made this trade. Kyrie Irving's off the market. He's now going to be on the Dallas Mavericks. But Kyrie Irving's a free agent at the end of this year. And Kyrie Irving wants a lot. He wants a huge deal to be signed. And this is somebody who has had issues at every team he's been at relatively recently. A bad exit with Boston and a really, really, really rocky time with Brooklyn. In that entire time,
bad exit
Brooklyn,
with Cleveland too. Bad exit in every single franchise, every single stop, and has never reflected after any of those situations that maybe the common denominator was him. Just zero self-reflection from the guy in the past 5 or 6 years.
I understand why people were excited about the prospect of Kyrie Irving on the team. I think just from a purely on-court perspective, it was very easy to envision a really, really good basketball team with Kyrie Irving essentially taking Chris Paul's place in the starting lineup. It was really easy to do it, but I also understand the other perspective of that, of people who believe building a championship team is about more than that. And yes, Kyrie Irving is a champion, but he had LeBron James, and that goes a long ways.
That LeBron guy, he's kind of good.
Yeah, it goes a long. I mean, he's since then he's had Jason Tatum and Kevin Durant. They didn't win championships either. Tatum was a little young. I'll give him some slack on that one. But Kevin Durant, in their best chance to win a title, he willingly sat basically for the majority of a season rather than getting a vaccine. Not to mention just being suspended for what he did this season. There's just a lot that comes with Kyrie that is not basketball related that could hurt your chances to win a championship too. That's just how it is. And not to mention the idea of him being a flight risk. Something could happen at the end of the season, for example, in Dallas, after they traded for him, that causes him to leave and go sign with another team if they have enough cap space. Maybe he does end up in LA after all, and then Boston is left after trading all their assets with less picks available and not much available in general, since they already traded picks for other players like Porzingis in the past. And that's just a situation that I think the Suns had to wrestle with, and they came to the conclusion that they came to, which is they didn't move for him. And for those who are disappointed by that, I understand that. For those who are happy about that, I understand that too. And I think there are sort of valid reasons to feel both of those ways at this point. But I do think it sort of is a done deal at this point, so we don't have to spend too long talking about that. But where I do think it becomes relevant is that the Suns want Kevin Durant, and they've wanted Kevin Durant since the offseason. And now with Kyrie Irving leaving Brooklyn, you have to ask the question, is Kevin Durant going to make himself available at this point? Because
that's right, folks, we're back. If you haven't tuned in since August for some reason, then you'll notice that nothing's changed.
Well, I will say, after it all ended, I brought up the possibility on the podcast about maybe revisiting this at the trade deadline, and I remember your groan. I remember your groan very specifically.
But I'm not groaning. I'm not groaning because I don't acknowledge the talent, the immense talent that is Kevin Durant.
Of course.
I'm just groaning because you forced me, not you. It's not fair, but the forces at B have forced me to speak about Kevin Durant, the hypothetical Kevin Durant on the Suns situation for, I don't know, too many hours of my life at this point. And I don't know if I want to do it again, Mike. I just don't know if I want to do it again.
It was a rug pull. We got the rug pulled out of under us. We got crypto scammed with the concept of Kevin Durant joining the team in the past. And look, I don't think that, here's what I'll say. Will Kevin Durant be traded? I don't know. Maybe. Do I think Kevin Durant wants to be on the team with the second best player on his team, quote unquote, being Ben Simmons right now and not Kyrie Irving or James Harden? I doubt it. Why would he want to be there? And I think Brooklyn has to know that, right? I think there is a chance that even after this trade with Kyrie Irving gone, that they could be really good. But I'm just not convinced.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they could be really good if KD's locked in every night and he does all the scoring, and they've got long defenders around him for sure. But
yeah, that can shoot. Yeah,
but it's not a surefire model. It's kind of a more heliocentric model that I'm sure KD at age 34 doesn't really want to be forcing his body through.
A Kevin Durant who is sort of desperate for his own championship at this point, right? It's not necessarily about being on a competitive team who gave it its all in the playoffs. He wants a championship. And I think that means he wants to play with players like Kyrie Irving on the court or Devin Booker.
The problem is, if Kevin Durant really wants a championship, he needs to learn a valuable lesson from former teammate Kyrie Irving, which is that sometimes to get what you want in this league, you need to be an asshole. You need to be a bit of a
Grab that James Harden fat suit.
You need to be a bit of a bad person sometimes if you really want to get what you want, because you contrast the two situations. Kevin Durant gave the Nets all the time in the world when he asked out in the summer, made his trade request, to the point where the Nets were able to hold him hostage for the entire summer and say, no, you know what? You're showing up to training camp. We're calling your bluff. You're going to play. You're Kevin Durant. You love basketball. We know you'll be here in September. See you in September. Mm-hmm. And he had to come back to the organization, tail between his legs, and act like everything's fine. Maybe everything is fine, but maybe it's not. Contrast that with Kyrie Irving, who gave the team 1 week's notice when they were in contention. Everyone who covers the Nets was like, oh, isn't it amazing that we've had 2 or maybe 2 months drama-free covering this team, and then, bam, Kyrie had to go and end it all. But Kyrie got what he wanted. He requested a trade. He got what he wanted within 24 hours. KD could be the same. He could do the same thing. He just has to put his foot down,
he has to do two things, yeah.
He just has to be as much of a dick as Kyrie Irving is, and maybe he could get what he wants, but it's in his hands.
More, because Kevin Durant has to do 2 things. Because he's under contract for longer, he has to do 2 things, which is 1, say he doesn't want to play for the Nets, and 2, say he doesn't want to play for any team but Phoenix. Because that allows Phoenix to negotiate from the biggest the largest leverage that they could actually garner. Because otherwise, he's in a scenario where other teams will start looking to try to trade for him because he's under contract. He has to make it very clear that he doesn't want to be there. And look, this is directly from Sean Marks. This is on Media Day. He said, first off, I'm not his boss. We're partners. If he wanted out and still wanted out, he wouldn't be here. So Sean Marks himself says if Kevin Durant doesn't want to be there, they'll trade him. And I think Kevin Durant saw him say that, right? And Kevin Durant can go directly into his office and throw that quote down on the table, or have his agent do it and throw that quote down on the table and tell him where he wants to be. And it's up to him to try to make this happen at this point. And then, of course, James Jones and Sean Marks are going to be involved in that scenario if anything could happen. But look, I think it's actually something. I don't think it's completely off the table in a way that it's not worth talking about. I do think that the Suns have to treat this relatively seriously, but they have to understand, and everyone else has to understand, if this is just not going to happen at the deadline, you have to do something. The initial report...
Yeah, you cannot wait until the offseason hoping that this happens.
The initial report on Matt Ishbia was that the Suns were willing to take on excess salary and willing to trade what? Do you remember?
I do not.
A pick. And it was a pick. One pick, right?
One pick is all it took to get Kyrie Irving.
But isn't that interesting too?
One first round.
Isn't that interesting too in the context of what if the Suns are thinking maybe Kevin Durant will be available in the offseason at this point? Now they could potentially improve, take on more salary, and then have assets available if they only trade one pick for Kevin Durant in the summer and still potentially improve in this season. I find that to be kind of interesting. Second part of that, let's say that they're trying to negotiate something right now in this current deadline season. One, it's not a sign and trade anymore. DeAndre Ayton and figuring out how to trade DeAndre Ayton for Kevin Durant was really complicated in the offseason because he wasn't under contract. Now, there are other reasons it's complicated now, being that he could say no to a trade. You know, there has been some reporting that they don't think he would say no to anywhere at this point. That was Tim McMahon that said that. But it was a lot more complicated with the sign and trade rules because it would have hard capped Brooklyn. They would have had to get rid of a bunch of other salary in order to make the room for DeAndre Ayton. And it's just something that did not really come out to be something that was really feasible at the time. Now it is. He's under contract. They can trade him. It doesn't hard cap them anymore as long as DeAndre Ayton is willing to go. Then it works. The other part about it is there's a rule about trading picks that they have to be 7 years beyond the current year. We are now past the new year. That means the Suns can actually include another pick that they were not able to include previously. If the Suns wanted to send more picks for Kevin Durant, that means they could potentially do something built around, for example, DeAndre Ayton, Cameron Johnson, salary, and 5 picks unprotected, which is something that sounds familiar. It was something that happened for Rudy Gobert, except a better package because it also includes DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just an example of how things are changed from the past to now when it comes to this situation. Not to mention, Kevin Durant, likely no longer on a contender. I don't think you can call him a contender anymore. So it's just a really interesting time to talk about this and whether or not it happens. Look, I'm glad we only have to do one podcast about it, Sam, rather than months of it, which is what we had to do in the off season. But I'm not ruling it out as a possibility at this point. What are you thinking?
Let me just say, I don't find it surprising in the least, but we should talk about specific packages. I like the fact that you made a package there. A really compelling one, too, because Ayton, Johnson, 5 first-round picks and salary filler, whatever. I'm not sure who can beat it. But it's not surprising, but it is interesting to me that you just threw DeAndre Ayton in there immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't have to technically be in this package.
It's the salary that makes the most sense.
But he doesn't have to.
You're right.
I mean, Mikal Bridges, Dario Saric, and Landry Shamet works.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, technically right now, and again, I think we decided it's probably not going to happen, but if the Suns somehow could get a KD deal before Thursday, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and Dario Saric or Landry Shamet, one or the other, works.
Yeah.
You don't have to give up DeAndre Ayton. Now, you'd have to give up Mikal Bridges. And I know there were some Suns fans who believe that Mikal Bridges was untouchable last summer, and that was before he started playing like this. And he's been awesome.
I'm one of those Suns fans. I think that they didn't want to trade Mikal Bridges.
He's not untouchable, though. For me, he's not untouchable. For Kevin Durant, love the guy. He's one of my favorite Suns of all time already. I'm not making you can't fool me twice. You cannot fool me twice with that.
I think it's fair.
Now, if I had the choice,
I think from a negotiating perspective, the Suns have to start with DeAndre Ayton and Cameron Johnson.
Just to be clear,
the team just makes sense with Mikal Bridges. It just makes sense because who else guards the main ball handler on the other team?
Yeah, I mean, you could find another guy. Throw the Jazz a first-round pick for Jared Vanderbilt. You can kind of trick yourself.
Get Royce O'Neal maybe from the Nets too.
Yeah, something like that. There are ways around it. But yeah, if I had a choice between who am I keeping, because who do I think is more replaceable, between Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton, I'm going to send the Nets Ayton because I think ultimately he's more replaceable. No doubt.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to want Bridges. I wouldn't draw the line there.
Do you think this could happen? I'll start there with you.
Before Thursday or in the summer?
Before Thursday.
1% chance it happens before Thursday, I would say.
All right. Okay, I'll take that.
I mean, think about, like, I understand if Kyrie's value is what it is, and no one was willing to get, but like the Mavs had other first-round picks they could have traded. Don't you think it's interesting that the first-round pick that Brooklyn got is 2029?
Yeah, they think Luka's going to leave. They think Kyrie's going to get Luka to leave.
That's possible.
That's what that tells me.
But they could have gotten 2025, and maybe they leave by then too. It's just interesting to me because they're pushing the rebuild so far into the future there that they really do believe they can contend for a while. And I don't know. We'll see how it works for them.
Well, based on that 1%, let's just quickly talk about if DeAndre Ayton were to be traded, who could be the centers that could be available? Did you have any that you wanted to mention? Now, keep in mind, if the Suns end up trading 5 unprotected first-round picks, they could only do pick swaps at that point or second-round picks, so they'd have to find a way to give some sort of value. A
budget center for $10 million-ish or less who can start in a pinch is basically what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
Somebody better than, potentially at least, better than Biyombo, Jock Landale.
Better than Biyombo or Jock Landale, but not great. We talked about Mason Plumlee recently. I would he would be maybe the first guy I think of.
Might be the best option at this point because, he's probably relatively available. I mean, what do they need him for? In Charlotte at this point. Not a great player, but like serviceable. Can pass the ball pretty well.
Dude, if you're starting Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Cam Johnson or something like that, I don't know. Who the fuck cares? You know, like you can handle Mason Plumlee as your starting center. It's fine.
Yeah. Pirtle. Jakob Pirtle. Yeah. I'm not sure the Suns can
Pirtle's
get him.
Better, but I don't know.
He's a free agent. He's a free agent. At this point, we just saw Kyrie Irving, who's going to be a free agent, go for a first-round pick. I think the Suns could probably get Pirtle for less than that. At this point, if you can figure out a way to do that. I'll just say Mo Bamba, a much bigger salary. Just wanted to put it out there because there's just a lot of big guys on Orlando, so maybe you can call about Bamba. He's probably a little overpaid for what he's capable of doing, but, the kind of guy that I think somebody like Monty Williams would probably like. He is suspended right now for 4 games.
for fighting Austin Rivers.
For fighting, so you could probably say no for that, but... defensively, I think he would bring something interesting.
That was low-key maybe one of the funnier moments in the NBA the past week as well. Kind of got lost in the shuffle of all this other stuff as Austin Rivers and Mo Bamba going after each other post-game. Stupid.
I'll mention just 2 guys real quick that are super long shots, but I'll just put it out there in case they do end up getting moved, and I think one of them is more likely than the other. If the Clippers end up making a big trade and somehow trade Zubac, that would just be so great for the Suns to get in there and try to steal him. If that means, using Jay Crowder because they make a similar amount of money, that would be awesome because Zubac is one of the most underrated centers in the NBA right now. If you have to start with a center who can play pretty well, he would be awesome. And I just put this one on here almost as a little bit of a troll here, but what if Kevon Looney becomes available? Steph is hurt now. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with that team if Steph misses 4 or 5 weeks.
I don't know if it's going to be 4 or 5 weeks. Have you seen that in a?
I think
report?
4 weeks was the
Really?
Shit. Yeah.
Well, he's going to get a full week off for the All-Star break.
It's torn. It's some torn muscles though, or torn ligaments, I believe.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be tough for them.
and I don't think I don't think they're necessarily willing to just give up on this season. But they've been in the luxury tax a long time here. If you could find a way to give them some luxury tax relief, if they think that they're not going to be contending this year, they might do it, because each one of those dollars is more like $3 or $4 for them.
I'm not counting them out just because their record without Steph already this year, because he's missed a bunch of games, is weirdly good. It's not like good, but it's like 500 or almost 500, I think, without Steph. So if they can continue to tread water like that, it's just that the West is so close. So we'll see.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on big men? That could potentially become available.
No, I mean, I think you kind of basically listed guys number 25 through 30.
Yeah.
Who could be starting big men in the NBA if you ranked all the starting centers. Those are the names, right?
What if
Mason Plumlee,
what about
Mooney.
I'm just gonna throw this one out there because I just thought of it. Hartenstein for Crowder. Would you be okay with that?
Hartenstein's struggled this year. I really do feel like an element of that is Tibbs not knowing how to use him.
Yeah.
And the Knicks not knowing how to use him. But I think you can do better for Crowder. Can we get a pick?
That's a good question. I'll just throw it out there just because if you absolutely need a center, I think, first of all, I continue to think Crowder would be a good fit on that Knicks team if they just want somebody for the playoffs this year. Maybe it'd be Tibbs' favorite player, like most favorite player he's ever coached would be Jay Crowder, I feel like. And Hartenstein, his value being low kind of helps you in that case if you need to find a center. His defensive numbers are actually pretty good as far as the rim protection for Hartenstein, so just throw that out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. It's coming in the case where we get KD, and so we need a center, and we get Hartenstein for, I would ask for like a protected pick or something from the Knicks, see if they balk at that.
Let's move on and talk about other names. Who do you want to, I guess in some ways, rehash
real
first?
quick, before we do this, because we didn't actually get a chance to address this, and I am curious. I think we need to say, we talked about the Kyrie trade. We talked about how he went to the Mavs. This can be a 3-minute segment. It can be however long you want it to be. I know it wasn't in our outline here. Does this change your perspective on the Mavs in the Western Conference? Because this is one of the biggest rivals for the Suns right now.
I'm glad you talked about that.
I think we do need to address it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does change my perspective on the Mavs. I think they could be really good. Now, I think they're going to struggle to defend anyone, and
they're 24th in defensive rating today, before the trade, and this trade makes them worse defensively. And I think, of course,
they made the trade today, and the trade deadline's 4 days away from now, but they made the trade today probably to see if they could find a way in the next 4 days to address that and get even better potentially after that. But maybe they actually go for Jay Crowder. Actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, I haven't even thought about that until now. That would be a pretty good fit on that team to take, DFS's role there.
Give me Christian Wood.
Or find a way to use it as a third team, if they'd be willing to extend Jay Crowder, which they might actually, just thinking about their situation. That's a lot cheaper than what they were paying Dorian Finney-Smith. But yeah, I think the combination offensively of, they could have a game where Kyrie Irving or Luka Doncic is on the floor at all times. One or two of them or both of them. And that's tough.
They basically need to do that because those are their only two ball handlers.
And if you think about
now, I recognize that those are two of the 5 or 10 best ball handlers in the league, but they're their only two. I mean, they basically, if you think about it, last year they killed the Suns. They had Luka and Jalen Brunson, who had a solid series. He didn't have a great series, but a solid one. Spencer Dinwiddie, low key, had an amazing series. Killed the Suns. They had 3 guys. They lost Jalen Brunson, replaced him with Christian Wood, who's a great play finisher, great offensive player, but not a ball handler.
Terrible defender.
So then this year they only have 2. And now they swap out Dinwiddie. I mean, they effectively, they replaced Jalen Brunson by getting Kyrie, but in the process lost Spencer Dinwiddie. They still only have 2 ball handlers. Still 2 is less than 3. Still less than they had last year. 2 really, really good ball handlers, but only 2.
Yep. And, we'll see what they end up doing. But I do think that just the combination of those two guys is fascinating. And maybe it's more built for next year than it is for this year. Like they have an off season to try to figure out what best to put around them. But they're in a good place. And even just because of how good Luka is, they have, I think, right now the second best record against teams over 500 in the West. So already, just looking at that gives you an idea of how good they could be adding Kyrie Irving. Now, there is this massive blow-up-in-your-face potential for that team because of that. And, long-term for the Mavs, that could lead to Luka playing somewhere else. And, who knows where that could end up being. But I do think that, if it works, it could work really, really well. And I think the Suns are already kind of bad against them anyway. The 2 games, they've played 3 times this season. The 2 games they got beaten, they got killed. And the 1 game they won was the first game of the season. So, I guess I have some PTSD already built into that because of the combination of 2 of the last 3 or 4 times the Suns have played have been really bad. So I don't know. I think they could be very, very good.
How about this? Do they concern you more than Denver, the current number 1 seed?
I don't know. I think that will be pretty dependent on this trade deadline.
On this deadline.
What the Suns end up looking like, yeah.
If the Suns still have DeAndre Ayton, for instance, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I brought up 2 potential closing lineups for the Suns that were, Pascal Siakam and DeAndre Ayton traded for each other, or a version where Cameron Johnson and OG Anunoby were traded for each other. Right, and the version with OG Anunoby and DeAndre Ayton is probably better against the Mavs. I'm sorry, no, against the Nuggets. And the version with Pascal Siakam at center, probably better against the Mavs. So,
Yeah.
Those 2 different teams and what they could be good against are pretty dramatically different because DeAndre Ayton, in the past, not on Christmas, but in the past, played well against Nikola Jokic in the playoffs. So, I want to say, though, Jokic is the type of player that kind of figures out defenders over time, and the Suns can't rest on their laurels too much with DeAndre Ayton when it comes to guarding Jokic because we saw him figure him out a little bit in Christmas, and his approach was better in that Christmas Day game against DeAndre Ayton, and he had a 40-plus point triple-double.
I think it's also fair to say Jokic is just a better player than he was 2 years ago. I really do think he's gotten better every year, and that's why he's probably going to win MVP again this season, but... Yeah. I mean, DA at his best in that playoff series when the Suns swept the Nuggets played as good defense over a sustained stretch on Jokic as anyone in the league, honestly, as good as we've ever seen from anyone in the NBA. That's how good he was.
Right. That's right.
Important to keep in mind.
Let's see. Who do you want to cover next? Do you want to just rehash the Toronto guys?
Well... Where should we start? Let's start here. In case you missed it, because I also feel a certain duty, a certain responsibility to, not everyone is as insane as we are, Mike. Not everyone is following every morsel of slop. Glued.
Terminally online, yeah.
F5ing, terminally online. Toxic on Twitter. Hitting F5 over and over again. I'm
trying to be less toxic, for the record.
I've been super non-toxic this year to give myself a little bit of credit. At least I think so. But Gambo, let's start there.
Yeah.
Gambo went on his radio show.
Yeah, and did his Gambo thing.
You may have heard of it. It's a little more popular than our show, I think. But did his Gambo thing, basically. Yeah. Shot down the notion that the Suns were interested in... Forgive me if I forget anyone. Actually, let me know if I forget anyone here,
okay.
Mike. But I believe he said OG Anunoby, no.
Yep. He said no. Yep.
John Collins, no.
No. Yeah.
Kobe White, no.
No. Mm-hmm.
Alex Caruso?
Yeah, surprising he put Caruso in.
He said no.
Disappointing.
That one was interesting to me because I don't think anyone ever mentioned Alex Caruso. But the other 3 guys we talked about, definitely on this podcast. Is there anyone else I forgot?
Do you think that Gambo... He clearly has someone who's willing to say no to him to player names, and he has yet to report anyone that they might be interested in. There was a brief moment where he said he could see the Suns being interested in OG Anunoby, and then obviously someone texted him and said, nah.
No.
And then he said no to that.
You think his source?
People just reply to his tweets saying, "What about this player?" And then he texts those names like Caruso to his guy,
and it's just one word response every time.
Caruso?
No.
Yeah.
Might be.
I like Caruso, but so do the Bulls, I think, and they don't want to get rid of him.
So I mean, it depends.
Than,
It depends how much stock you want to put into Gambo's word. I continue to think that John Collins and OG Anunoby, that kind of paired trade idea we had last week, where you got both of them at once, that would be great.
Yeah,
I still think that would be pretty good.
For the record, and above Sam is mentioning something that only our patrons heard.
Oh, am I? And, was that only the Patreon episode?
Yeah, and it was this idea of and those of you who heard it may have heard it on the Bill Simmons podcast since then, but it was DeAndre Ayton and 2 first-round picks for OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet, and then some expiring contracts to Atlanta for John Collins. The Suns would start at that point. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and John Collins. Play kind of small, but be really tough defensively on the perimeter. And and yes, it was on we said it first. I'll just give us credit. We're not stealing it. I don't want people to think we're stealing it. But yeah, that was something that you mentioned. We kind of put that together on that last Patreon podcast, and it is pretty fascinating. But it appears that
Gambo
says no.
So what are we supposed to do? Okay, so now what do we do? Do we just list off names? I know you
asked.
Who
has he not said no yet? He hasn't said no to Siakam.
He didn't say no to Siakam or VanVleet.
Or Fred VanVleet.
For that matter.
They're both out there. Can you get both? I don't know.
Actually, didn't he say yes at some point to Jared Vanderbilt?
Yes, he did. I think he did.
I think that's one of the only...
to Jared Vanderbilt since the offseason.
I know. This was like a month ago, but I think this is one of the only players who I can actually remember Gambo saying, you know who would be good on the Suns is that guy Jared Vanderbilt. Because which obviously means that someone was whispering that name into his ear.
Let me just add a dream over section of my notes here. So we're gonna add OG, Caruso, Collins. Who else did you say? Is that it?
Kobe White, but I mean that's not a dream.
It's not a dream for us. Yeah, for some people they'll be
the Kobe White nightmare.
I'm gonna add Kuzma and obviously Kyrie Irving because I think Kuzma the dream is over.
Kuzma's dead. Yep.
The Dream Dead segment. Okay, Kuzma, Kyrie, OG Caruso, Collins, and Kobe White. Those are our Dream Dead players right now. We'll see if anyone gets traded while we're on this podcast and we can add them to that list. But right now, those are the guys that we know of. So who does that leave? Siakam?
Yep.
Which I think, beyond Kevin Durant, I think you got to put Siakam up there. He's just Kevin Durant's much better. Siakam is younger. And there is a scenario where if you have to trade Mikal Bridges for Kevin Durant, maybe you can find a way to get Siakam without doing that. And I don't know, you can argue about the viability of that. I'm not prepared for that argument. Kevin Durant's just much better. So it is kind of interesting to think about. Is that your number one guy outside of Durant at this point?
Yes.
That would make you the happiest?
Siakam? Yeah. I'd fucking jump for joy. Come on. It would be amazing.
Everyone knows I love Siakam. It's almost like a meme at this point. Bojan?
Yep, he's on the list.
And so Bojan is the kind of guy where you get away with trading some salary and a first-round pick where you get better this offseason. You saw him in that Detroit game. He's really good. He's good. He's like a really good basketball player. You get better this season. He's signed long-term, and you only trade potentially one pick for him, so you hold on to some flexibility this offseason. For example, say the Nets say, now we're going to force Kevin Durant to stay on the team for a few more months. And the Suns say, okay, fine, we're gonna go to Bojan, get Bojan. That's another tradable contract. We're only going to trade one pick. And he's signed for multiple years. We'll go into the offseason. We'll have the rest of our picks available to trade in the offseason. And then we'll revisit it again in the offseason. So you and I will have to do 5 more podcasts about it at that point. But that's an example of like a trade that you could make that could keep them going. Okay, and then you have Jared Vanderbilt, Beasley. Those are 2 guys, supposedly 1 pick each if you want either of those guys from the Jazz. Jeremy Grant, is he like off the table? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't think he's super available. Josh Hart as well is someone who people have inquired about on the Blazers. I don't think super available, but in theory would be nice. I don't know. Well, why would Portland be selling right now?
Yeah, I mean they're bad for one, and he's a free agent at the end of the year.
They're bad, but are they bad enough to convince themselves that it's time?
That's what's tough about
never
the combination of the West being so close as far as the standings go and the play-in tournament. Because right now they're 11th.
They're 2 games back. Range. They're 2 games back of us for 5th.
Yeah, exactly. But they're 2 games back for 5th. Yeah. So if they go on a losing streak here, a la the New Orleans Pelicans, who are now 10th after being first and lost 10 games in a row. If they went on a losing streak, they would just be completely out of it. OKC would have a better chance than them at that point. And, I don't know. You're probably right that they probably won't be. But it's just a name that is good and a free agent. Maybe he asks to be traded. He sees Kyrie Irving and says, "Why not me?" And then you can potentially get him at that point. Josh Hart is another good one. Anyone else that stands out to you?
Let's see. Who else has been... Okay, so you put out a tweet asking people for other names. So.
Yeah, should we go to that now?
Yeah.
All right. This is just our full slop drop. We're really getting in there.
Full slop drop. All right. So we talked about Bojan. Other
97 names, replies to this.
Other people might be available from the Pistons, though. It might not just be Bojan. I don't know.
Yeah, like Sadiq Bey.
Sadiq Bey.
Yeah. Do they want him? I don't know.
He's all right. He's a plug and play wing. I wouldn't go crazy over that.
If you put him in like the Torrey Craig role, he's really good. I mean, you'd be like a plus player at that sort of fourth wing player at that point. He's had a 50-point game. Not a lot of Suns players have had 50-point games. Chris Paul's never had a 50-point game.
Nope.
So
should go replace him with Jamal Crawford at point guard for that very reason.
Adam Aronson at Sixers Adam covers the Sixers. He suggested Matisse Thybulle.
No.
Yeah, I thought you might shoot it down.
We already have Josh Okogie, who's literally the same player.
Well, this is a lot taller.
It's the point of having 2.
Yeah, I don't know. He likes Arizona. There's like a version of he's just a guy who sits on the bench for the Suns. I don't really get it either. I imagine they would want Jay Crowder, and yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Dylan said, Art of the Dill said Doug McDermott. That's another interesting one.
He actually said available. Douglas McBuckets. If you look at his comment here, it does not say Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
I saw a graphic. This should not surprise anyone, but it was an advanced stat, maybe Raptor, I forget which one, that showed the worst defensive players in the NBA this season, and Doug McDermott was in the bottom 5. That being said, he's a very James Jones player. He can shoot the hell out of the ball.
He can drive on closeouts. He's like pretty good at that. I mean, he's kind of like Bojan, basically, right?
That's stretching it, I think.
He's like a Bojan light.
Yeah, he's a very Sam's Club Bojan.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what it would take to get him. I think if the Suns end up in a scenario where I don't know if they're going to be a team that wants to hold on to assets in the summer because nothing becomes available to them in the offseason. And then they're in a scenario where maybe they want to trade 1 first-round pick. I'm not sure they would do it for someone like Doug McDermott.
Doug McDermott. Once you get into that tier, that's a second-round pick.
If you can do it for a second-round pick, then yeah, go ahead and do it.
It's not a first-round pick trade.
Serge said quickly Ricky Rubio, which I think Ricky Rubio is probably not available, but kind of interesting.
Okay, but this is interesting. The second part of his comment here, he says he'd even take a flyer on Bones.
Yeah. That's somebody we know is available.
And I don't think we've talked about yet. This was an interesting piece of slop that people might have missed, that the number 1 seeded Denver Nuggets are thinking about selling off one of their best young players, Bones Hyland.
And if you really look into the deep sort of Twitter replies by Nuggets fans, it appears that Bones hates being in Denver and does not get along with Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Murray.
Thank you. I got Jamal Crawford on the brain. Thinking about 50-point games, man. Hoopers. Him and Dario. Hoopers. But Bones, it would have to be they want front court help, right? They probably want Jay Crowder. So the question is, I think it's twofold in this scenario. 1, is Bones worth taking a flyer on here? And 2, is it worth giving Jay Crowder to potentially the best team in the West already? And I think that actually is what makes it more complicated.
How much does Bones make? He makes
less than Jay.
He makes 2.2, so they'd have to give us something else because he's on a rookie contract. That's the whole appeal to me though about Bones Hyland is he's 22 years old, and the Suns just don't have players who are 22 years old that can also create off the dribble. He could be something for real. Can he be the main backup guard on a championship team right now? I don't know.
I mean, they'd probably keep him if he could, right?
It'd be a gamble, but he could be really good in the future, man. I don't know. The Bones are congealing with that one. What else do they have on their roster? So the problem is, I'm looking at Denver's roster. Jeff Green makes 4.5. Is that enough? I don't think it's enough.
Yeah, it might be. You can get, I think you have to get 75% of the way there salary wise.
You want KCP?
Oh.
He makes 14. We'd have to give them something else like Torrey Craig or something.
I don't think they do that, right? Because that would be. I don't think they do that. He's too important for them.
Yeah, he is a starter.
Yeah, he's too important. He's been good this year.
I think Jay Crowder's still better. Yeah, they don't really have. I'd have to run the numbers.
What about
unless
Bruce Brown?
Jeff
How much
Green,
does he make?
He makes 6.5, but isn't he important too? I mean, he would be perfect. I love Bruce Brown.
Yeah, he would be kind of interesting on the Suns.
He's actually a really important player for them, though.
Jay Crowder's better.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, being honest, though, is he?
He's a better defender.
I mean,
offensively,
he's not as versatile.
Yeah. That's interesting. I wonder if they would do that. I don't know if I would do that, but it's interesting to think about. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know if Jay Crowder's a guy you would trade for Bones, but that would be interesting. It sounds like they just want a first-round pick for him.
Oh, if that's the case, I don't know. Maybe you would do that. Depends on what else becomes available to the Suns. Yeah. I think that Bones is not really quite good enough. I think you're right, but I think it's like an interesting one where are the Suns willing to pay a bunch of money to a guy? Because it's not just his salary. It's like, are they willing to pay a guy to potentially not be in the rotation this postseason? Mm-hmm. I don't know if they are. And
I'll say this here. Field goal percentage is bad. Finishing at the rim is bad, but 38% on 5.7 3-point attempts per game.
And a lot of them are pull-ups.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those guys. He, can kind of get to the free throw line, not a ton, but he can kind of do it. Shoots a good percentage there. 3 assists to 1.6 turnovers. It's a good ratio. Not a defender at this stage of his career. There are a lot of kinks to work out, but there's real potential there. There is.
Here's from George Liddy. He said Alec Burks, 44% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per game. I believe the broadcast said he was a top 5 3-point shooter on the season, Alec Burks, and on a team that doesn't really need him right now in Detroit. I think Alec Burks is an interesting one, especially if you try to go after Bojan. Maybe you can find a way to get both guys, but he's one of your guys, right? He's one of these guys that...
I advocated for Alec Burks for the Suns to grab Alec Burks in free agency years ago. This was 2 or 3 years now. But at the time, my argument was exactly the same. It was the Suns need a guy who can get buckets off the bench, specifically self-created. And this is, on a budget, one of the best self-creative scorers in the NBA. He just is, and he continues to be. And in fact, it's really impressive that he continues to be in his 30s. Like, Alec Burks, I think, was drafted pretty early in the lottery. I can't remember exactly where he was drafted, but it's kind of amazing that his career has extended this long with him not really playing on many good teams in the process, to be entirely honest. But no, I mean, he's solid. Ultimately, I don't think he's enough to push the Suns over. Like, again, this is like can you get Alec Burks for 2 seconds? I don't know if I'd give up a first for him. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, he's out there.
It's interesting.
He's awesome at that one thing. It's just like, what's his game outside of that one thing? He can make plays, but he's not a playmaker exactly, and he's not a defender. Again, it's kind of the same thing as Bones, actually. The difference is he's 32 instead of 22.
Yeah, I think there is an element of... I think he's playable. Like, I think he's a playable player, at the very least. Somebody said Isaac Okoro for Jay Crowder. How do you feel about Isaac Okoro? That's a young small forward who I think you could make the trade. He makes about $7 million right now. You can make the trade legally, just a 1-for-1 swap. And I think, you'd be getting the worst player in that, but a higher potential player in the future.
You watch more Cavs than me, but I don't see it with Okoro. What do you think?
He's so good defensively, and the offense is getting better, but it's still not great. I think what we've seen recently is teams just completely abandoning guarding both Torrey Craig and Josh Okogie. And it really messes up the Suns' offense pretty dramatically. I think the team that did it the best most recently was the Dallas Mavericks, and it was bad. The Suns could not find a way to score. The ball kept swinging, and then even they did it to Ish Wainwright. You know, if your offense is based around Josh Okogie, Ish Wainwright, and Torrey Craig, it's bad. And the same thing applies to Isaac Okoro. I do think there is a world where Isaac Okoro improves offensively over time or has a good playoffs offensively for the Cavs, and, you know, vice versa, I guess, on the Suns. If he was on the Suns, he could potentially have a good offensive playoffs as well. You know, but he's young, 22, 6'5", can guard guys. It's interesting. If you end up in a scenario where you can't find anything for Jay Crowder and you throw that trade out there to Cleveland right at the deadline and they say yes, I'd be okay with it. I wouldn't be against it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not into it? You just, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be excited about this one. I'm not going to lie.
I get it. Any other names stand out to you in this list of people replying?
Let me see.
A lot of them we've talked about, I think. Cam Reddish is there. Actually, people have requested trading for Torrey Craig. Which is funny. I think the most popular names are Siakam, Kevin Durant. You know, Terry Rozier's there. We've talked about him in the past.
Don't like Terry.
No, not a huge fan of Terry.
Jordan Clarkson's there. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, Clarkson's interesting, though, if you find a way to get him for like a Jay Crowder plus, I don't know, Landry Shamet or something.
Clint Capella, if an Ayton deal happens. That's another name to add to your list there.
Yeah, I don't know that they would do that, but that is interesting. He's a good defender still. Had a down year last year, but the defense is kind of all built around him this year because that whole team kind of sucks defensively outside of him. So he's been pretty good. And yeah, I think we covered it all. I think that's all we need to talk about for now. We have 4 days. It's Thursday.
Oof.
The trade deadline, and it's early.
There's also a game on Thursday, too. That'll be a fun day.
There is a game. Devin Booker, we haven't even mentioned this. Devin Booker will be back, hopefully. Hasn't been confirmed. Against the Brooklyn Nets on Tuesday, I believe, is that game. And so we could be watching Devin Booker going right up into the trade deadline. You know, that game against the Brooklyn Nets will be interesting, by the way, because no Kevin Durant, no Kyrie Irving. I guess maybe Spencer Dinwiddie can beat our asses again.
The Suns should be in New York by now. By the way, They're on their road trip. They should be in New York by now. Game's not till Tuesday. That means they get an off day, presumably. Explore the city. Do a little collusion. There's a lot of things that could happen in the next 48 hours in Brooklyn.
I'll say all the names again, and then they'll probably trade for someone we didn't mention. But I'll just say all the ones that I have written down. Kevin Durant, number 1. Pascal Siakam, number 2. Bojan Bogdanovic is on this list. Jeremy Grant, Josh Hart, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, Pirtle, Bava, Plumlee, Zubats, Kevon Looney. And the Dream Dead list, Kuzma, Kyrie, OG Anunoby, potentially. You know, it is Gambo. Caruso, Collins, and Kobe White. All right. We'll see what this is the legacy deadline for James Jones. He is, as one reporter put it, GMing for his life when it comes to the Phoenix Suns. So good luck with James Jones. It appears that they have talked to everybody in the NBA at this point. They know what they have available. The rest of the NBA knows what they have available. The Suns know what's out there at this point. It's just up to them to actually make a trade that makes sense. So we'll be back to cover the trade deadline this week. If there's anything big before the trade deadline, we will probably do a Patreon podcast to cover any rumors. If not, I think our next podcast will be after the trade deadline on Thursday. So thank you, everyone,
potential emergency podcast that we're excited for.
That's true. The trades may not be at the deadline. We could be back tomorrow talking about a trade if something ends up happening. But whatever it is, we'll be there to cover it. So thanks, everyone, for listening. Back soon.